Hi there, this is Mark Burnett with CubeBrush.com. In this chapter, we're going to be turning this skeleton that you see here into something that looks a little bit more like a person. So, this is actually where it gets interesting. What I like to do is not draw everything. I like to actually use volumes instead of lines. So a lot of people will go over this and kind of draw the shoulders on the outside here, and then make sure that everything's nice and kind of like draw the outline of the character this way. And that works. What I think is a lot easier is to go really rough in this stage and actually use volumes instead. So what I mean by volume is that we're going to turn this kind of skeleton into more of a silhouette, like a real silhouette, by filling up all those by filling up basically the skeleton that we have right now, and then adding a little bit of meat to that. So it goes something like this. You don't have to go complete black because I like to have some different shades in there, some different shades of gray to help sort of break up the different limbs and parts. So you go like this initially, and you can imagine that once you're really good at doing the skeleton, you don't actually have to draw all the joints. All you can do is, since the final result in this case is basically just a straight line with the width of a brush, at some point you can just draw that, instead of drawing drawing this and then the knee and then this and then joining it and then filling it up like I'm doing right now. Well, you just draw that from the start and you're done. So this is how I can get stuff really quickly, and this is actually how I do it now. So rather than actually doing all the joints, I'll just draw quickly the volumes instead. So right now, since I haven't done that, I'm just gonna go over everything and kind of fill up all those shapes. So you would have something that looks like this. So now, as you can see, that's something that's starting to resemble more of a person. It's less skeleton looking. So let me add a little bit of different color here to differentiate the depth. All right, and now what I do is basically kind of smoothen everything. So you can see you have a lot of sharp angles like this. We don't want that because that doesn't really exist on the body. So we want to smooth that out instead and start adding thickness to those legs. So obviously to be able to do that correctly, you have to have some sort of understanding of the anatomy of the character, and we're going to be talking about that in the next chapter. But for now, we're just going to do it really quickly. So it's not going to be completely accurate. It's going to be a little bit more kind of like a comic or a cartoon version of it. So we're not going to go into too much detail. It's going to be fairly simple. So as you can see, like for the legs, this would be it. So I'm not going to go into any more details than that. And then here we want to soften that out. And add a little bit of muscles here, so the traps. So now the neck size, the neck length is actually a little bit more realistic. And so as you can see, it's already starting to look like a person. And I'm gonna brighten this up just a tad because I want to add a little bit more details into this. All right, this is more like it. Okay, so now we're gonna go over this and then actually sort of refine it a little bit. So what I like to do here is just separate the shape. So where the shape intersect, there's the leg and the arm. I just want to make sure that it's very clear, that those are two separate shapes. So when there's something like that, I just want to make an outline like this so that I know what's going on. So don't worry about those lines here in particular. I'm going to be talking about them in the next chapter. Just worry about separating the shapes for now. So now that we have this, we can just do sort of suggestions for the breast. We're going to talk about that more in depth in future chapters. For now, we're just gonna leave it like that, as if she was wearing kind of like a wetsuit, right? So something like that. And as you can see, now this looks a little bit more feminine. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add some eyes, nose, ears, just, you know, facial features a little bit here so that it looks like a person a little bit more. And we'll move on to the other ones. And I'm gonna do the same thing for all the characters, all the skeleton that we created so far. So you can see here now, if I zoom in, there's a lot of problems, right? Like the neck is not gonna be like this, but this stage it's fine. We're gonna worry about that a little bit later when we go over all the muscle grooves and important bones that we need to worry about. For now, as I said, it should look a little bit more like a cartoon character, so less realism, just, you know, kind of like the average proportions, maybe stylized proportions a little bit, kind of cliche. So you get the hourglass, you know, the hourglass look. So this is the stage that we want to reach at this point. So we're gonna do the same thing for the two poses here. So we're gonna get the same kind of color, and then yeah, we just go over everything and kind of fill it up, and then I'm gonna tweak it. So you can imagine that, kind of like what I said in the first chapter, where the second chapter, I mean, where you're kind of adding the clay, you know, the rough volumes of clay on top of your frame that we've created. So this is the process that I like to use. So you start very rough, and you know, you add your volumes in, and then after that you kind of sculpt this big silhouette into something that looks a little bit more feminine. And overall, I found that this is actually a lot easier than drawing it, because drawing it you have to do a lot more steps. So, you know, right now I'm just drawing volumes like this, but you can imagine if you were to draw this same silhouette, you would have to go like this, then the outside, and then draw the line again on the other side. It just, you know, everything is longer. So this way, just one stroke, make sure it looks nice, and it's all good. So as you can see, I'm erasing a lot, and that's kind of how you go about this. So paint and erase to kind of sculpt the silhouette to something that looks nice. Again, it's still very simple. We haven't refined anything, and there's a lot of work still left to do. But now we have something that looks a little bit more like an actual person and not just like a skeleton. So this is a lot more fun to work with now. So yeah, the spine going like this. Alright, so on to the next one. So let's do this one real quick. So again, we fill in everything first, then we define our overlaps. And then we sculpt the shape to something that looks a little bit more like a person. So now the skeleton is filled in. I'm going to separate this part here. because otherwise the arm is going to disappear completely. So I want to make sure that I don't lose. There you go. And then like this. And then we're gonna go and add a little bit of thickness to the behind. And do kind of like this part here. So add this volume, that volume, and this one here onto this one. So we have this, like this, and the back also. And then the calf muscle. Something like this. Alright, now now it's starting to look pretty cool. And before anything else, I'm just gonna add a face to this character, like this, and this one. And what's really interesting now is that once you've achieved something like this, and when you can actually recreate it pretty easily. So once you've gotten good at drawing the skeleton and then filling it up and sort of making sure that your silhouette looks a little bit more like a human, something like this, and that the proportions are all there. What becomes interesting and a lot more fun actually is when you're able to paint instead of drawing the silhouette. So by painting, I mean doing something like this. So instead of drawing the outline of everything, you just kind of paint the shapes of them. So this allows you to be a lot faster. So I'm gonna draw a character, and you can kind of see here, like the way I do it is I'm still kind of drawing the joints, but it really quickly changes into a volume instead. And this is a much faster way to work. So you can see now, if you have something like this and you have all your proportions, and distances still works. If I were to do the joints here, it still makes sense. I have my joints here, 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 here. The distances all work still. It's just that I've done it enough that I can kind of eyeball it. And once you're able to do this, which is it's not that hard, then suddenly your workflow is just a lot faster. So basically, painting your silhouettes as opposed to drawing them will save you a lot of time. So again, drawing, erasing, kind of sculpting as if it was clay is the way to go. And don't have to worry about all the muscles or anything like that. At this point, it's just, it can look cartoony, and that's kind of the point. Just, are the proportions there? Does it work overall when you look at it really quickly? If yes, then it's good. It's all good. So now that my silhouette's pretty much done, so I work with a silhouette first, but because for me a silhouette is kind of easier to see, to gauge if it's right or wrong, but at the same time I'm still paying attention to what the inside is going to look like and making sure, you know, the inside distance works and all this stuff. So now that I can work on the inside, you can see. So this is obviously a very, very rough version of it, and very, you know, done very quickly, but you can spend a little bit more time on this to make sure that, you know, you get the pose that you want, and you get like an interesting pose. So this one's not the most interesting, but at least you know, at first glance everything seems to be working, and that's kind of the point of this stage. It took me a lot less time to create this one than it took me to create that one. So it's good to be able to do this, since this allows you to iterate a lot more. So, you know, if something doesn't work, well, it's fine, I can just erase it. It's just, you know, it's just a simple volume. It took me 3 seconds to paint it, so I can just try something different. Maybe something like this. You know, whatever. So this is the idea for this chapter. So if you can get really good at this and then be able to paint with volumes instead of drawing lines, this is the goal, and it'll save you a lot of time, and it's a lot less stressful because you don't have to worry about your lines being perfect. All you have to do is worry about the silhouette, the overall silhouette being kind of okay. So, you know, if you look in here, you know, obviously this line here is not okay, and that's fine. That's not the point here. You just want to make sure that the proportions are there. So in the next stage, we're going to be worrying about all the muscle mass and making sure everything is, you know, everything is realistic. But for now, as long as the proportions are, that's all that matters. In the next chapter, we're going to be looking at muscle groups and bones.